We also live stream this in YouTube.
Okay, let me try to figure.
We will start at 4 sharp. All right, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for Dr. Alan Locke and Daniel Fields for sharing their time with us. We welcome Bu Siti Rahmawati to give an opening speech. Silakan, Bu Rama.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Rahmat. Very good afternoon for all of us. First of all, I would like to deliver an appreciations for the PWMII, the Indonesia Investment Manager Associations, for our continuing collaborations in educating the investment society in Indonesia. This is, in my record, is the our third joint event. The first one and the second one is about the ethics and also global ESG disclosures. And thank you very much for our valuable speakers, Dr. Alan Locke, CFA FRM, Director Education Content Development, CFA Institute Asia Pacific, and Mr. Dr. Daniel Phillips, the CFA, for the head of Roadco Investment Strategies, who will all sharing their valuable knowledge, experience, as well as the master expertise for these new interesting topics that's very relevant for all of us in this disruption era. The technology is very hype nowadays, and also CFA Institute is have not only promote the integrity of the and the ethic of the market, but also to be relevant, keep also update for the new thought leaderships like this topic this afternoon. And thank you for all of the participants for spending the afternoon with us. Hope we could get some important key takeaways to improve our investment management for the value creations of our ultimate beneficiary and society. This is I refer from the CFA Institute missions, which is for the ultimate benefit of the society. And also in this opportunity, I would like to also share the CFA Institute have some research reports regarding this topic, and also release the certification program in data science for investment professionals. Maybe some of us would like to take a look at this program and also will enroll later on. And without further ado, let's enjoy the webinar. Thank you. Back to Pak Rahmat.
Okay, thank you, Bu Rahma. Bu Dewi, the slides, please. Before we start, some rules regarding the webinar. Next slide. Yeah. Please put your name as you registered. You will be mute. Then if there's any question, you can write it in chat or raise your hand. We will answer to you later. Next, let me introduce the speaker, Dr. Alan Locke, CFA, is the Director, Education Content Development at CFA Institute APAC. He has been with the CFA Institute for more than 9 years, with 3 years as the Capital Market Policy Director, 3 years as Ethics Education Director, and most recent, the Director, Content Development in the Education Division. For more than a decade, Alan used to work as both sell-side and buy-side equity analyst in Singapore. Just before he joined the CFA Institute, he was leading a team as the Senior Investment Manager to undertake due diligence in the solar energy sector. Alan also lectured on adjunct basis at universities spanning across Hong Kong, mainland China, and Singapore. Alan holds a doctorate degree from the University of Middlesex, an MBA from the University of Manchester, and an engineering bachelor degree from the Nanyang Technology University of Singapore. His research interests focus on ethical business modeling, complex sciences, and the real estate. Okay. Next book, I think we give the time and space to Dr. Alan first, then later I will introduce our next speaker. Go ahead, Dr. Alan.
Hi, everyone.
Bu Dewi, the slide, please. Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, let's wait for the slides.
Okay.
Hi, today is my honor to introduce to all of you our latest program, the Data Science for Investment Professional, which one of the speaker is actually our content creator. Next slide, please. Now, who is this certificate for? First of all, it is actually for those people, those of us in the financial industry who has a translator role, who might be working with portfolio manager and trying to see how big data and AI can actually be incorporated into the investment process. So you might be in this middleman role, or you yourself might actually be the analyst or portfolio manager who are trying to get to know how to thrive in this new revolutionary technological changes. And we understand the language of data science is actually the future of tomorrow. So this will be our target audience. Next slide, please. And the participant profile will be, as I mentioned earlier on, your portfolio manager, equity analyst, quant analyst, investment manager, financial advisor, and financial reporting analyst. And this is not just the restrictive list of participants, but potential profile, and the list actually go beyond here. Next slide, please. So what do we actually do in this course? First of all, we look at basic, we try to look at basic statistical method that actually underpin machine learning techniques. Many of us have heard the buzzword of algorithm, big data computing, but do we really understand what is actually going on? Here we go right back to the basic. We look at the statistics and the entire mathematical structure behind it. And secondly, we also look at the appropriate data visualization, and we use very simple Python method to actually to guide the participant, the student, through how actually it works in asset management setting. And we also describe how machine learning application can actually address real life investment problem, even ethical dilemma situation. And we also explain the machine learning concept to non-expert audience. So if you are an investment professional who is finding ways to understand how AI and big data work, this might be the course for you. And we also look at natural language processing. So things like ChatGPT 4 and the soon ChatGPT 5 will actually be part of our content as well. And last but not least, we also talk about ways to mitigate ethical dilemma and strategies used behind them, because machine, no matter how smart it is not human being, and they might not be able many of the time to actually unravel ethical dilemma situation. Next slide. So what is the requirement? For the time being, there's no experience required for this course, and the entire duration is about 90 to 100 hours, and it's about 12 to 15 hours per course. And it's self-paced, asynchronous, fully online. And there's a final assessment to determine whether you actually pass the certificate. Next slide, please. And these are a snapshot of the 5 different courses. In fact, I would say that these are all the steps of ABC towards getting a very strong foundational knowledge on data science. Next, please. And what will be the benefit for future employer when you hire people who have this certificate? First of all, the employee who have gone through this course will enable the successful integration of data science techniques into the firm and have positive contribution towards ROI. And secondly, when non-expert employees are actually working with data scientists, they will be able to speak the same language. And this is actually the key problem nowadays we notice in the job market. An employee who complete the cert will be able to better enable their employer to better shape the organization through understanding how to implement a truly T-shaped team in their firm. Next, please. So these are some of the practical exercises, and as you can see from this snapshot, many of them are actually Python related. But rest assured, even if you have zero experience in programming language, this is not a prerequisite for this course, and we'll take you through step 1, 2, 3 on how to execute all this in a data science big data setting. Next, please. And these are the 2 research that we actually do a lot of groundwork and where we get most of our content from. One is the AI Pioneer in Investment Management, and the other is the Handbook of Artificial Intelligence and Big Data Application in Investment. These are the 2 white papers that if you guys are keen to understand further, feel free to Google for them or come to our website to look for them. Next, please. And without further ado, let me pass this over to our star presenter today, Dr. Dan Phillips. He has actually did up 3 white papers on our website, on the CFA website. The first one being ChatGPT, its origin, the hype, the opportunity. The second one is actually about how to do co-pilot and how about autopiloting, how does it actually work, and as well as the 6 evolutionary steps of our ChatGPT and large language model. Without further ado, let me welcome Dr. Phillips Dan. Dan, over to you.
Thanks very much, Alan. And hello, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Yeah, so it's a great honor to be presenting to everyone today, and thanks very much for the invitation to present to the CFA Societies for Indonesia. It's a great honor. My name's Dan Phillips. I'm head of Rothko Investment Strategies, the Emerging and International Equities Manager. I have a PhD in Artificial Intelligence from the University of London, and I'm co-leader for AI research at the Gilmore Center of Financial Technology at Warwick Business School at the University of Warwick here in the UK. Rothko is the longest tenured, pure AI-driven investment manager. We have been successfully managing emerging markets and international equity strategies over more than a decade and have a thought leadership position in the industry, fired by our top flight AI research. And if you would like to learn more about this, please do feel free to reach out. I'll spend the next 20 or so minutes discussing how large language models, or LLMs, can be used safely and how they can potentially transform investment management. So if I can I just confirm that my screen is sharing okay?
It's still at the first page.
That's great.
Have you? Yeah, okay.
Thanks very much.
Now the case for investment.
Great, thank you. First, though, the case for AI and investment management could not be clearer. You can see quotes I have on this slide from 2 luminaries, but over the last 15 years, 2 very significant things have happened. Firstly, there has been an explosion of high-quality data in financial services. Secondly, there has been a revolution in technology that now allows us to draw deeper insights from this data. I'm talking about artificial intelligence, AI. Change is generally slow to come to investment management, but change has come, and now all management. Large language models are the latest step forward in that story and could be perhaps the most significant in many senses. I'm going to touch on a number of areas in this talk. First, how LLMs represent a big opportunity for systematic and fundamental investors. I'll talk about the immediate applications for LLMs to investment management and how LLMs are likely to be used in the future. I will touch on the basics of prompting, how to request information from an LLM, and I'll give some examples of how an LLM can be used as a tool to support financial analysts. We refer to this as an analyst's co-pilot, as Alan mentioned earlier. While governance is not a topic that excites many people, it is critical for AI generally, and particularly now for LLMs. It's inevitable that the use of LLMs in finance will be held back if we cannot answer simple questions around governance, specifically accuracy, transparency, and accountability. How accurate is our LLM? How transparent are the decisions that we make using the results of an artificial intelligence approach? And who is accountable for those decisions? We have to answer those questions. And finally, I'll talk to the future of LLMs in finance and I'll talk specifically to something that we now call baby AGI, or systems that can effectively think for themselves in a sense and deal with complex and potentially extensive tasks. LLMs are a big step forwards. The incumbent systematic approach to analyzing text data is sentiment analysis. Some investment managers have gone a bit further than this using topic modeling or information extraction, but generally speaking, sentiment scores are embedded in a wide range of finance processes today. Data providers in this space tend to be built around sentiment scoring, and quant model inputs derived from text data are generally focused on sentiment scores as well. The problem is that sentiment scoring is in some senses obsolete. Large language models do a better job. Given the introduction of powerful large language models that now enable specific information to be extracted and knowledge to be distilled using the powerful semantic inference of large language models. While sentiment analysis of, for example, an analyst call transcript might return a fairly abstract number, the sentiment equals a value of, say, 0.9 or 0.3, it's fairly abstract. LLMs can instead return specific human-oriented answers to a specific human-oriented question. It's quite different and much more powerful. Instead of asking what the sentiment of a news article is, you can now interrogate that article for specific points of interest. For instance, I show here that I passed into ChatGPT an analyst transcript for the Chinese tech group Tencent. In a simple sense, I can ask what the sentiment score of the presentation is. Or I can ask, for example, what has the impact of COVID-19 been on Tencent's profits? Or another question, what is the impact of China's gaming law, which restricts minors from gaming to 1 hour a week and over weekends and public holidays? What impact has that had on Tencent? LLMs have many drawbacks that need to be addressed, but the difference between sentiment scoring in finance and what we now have available to us in asking very specific questions using LLMs is clearly a huge advantage that we now have. LLMs are not business ready though, and I mean by that there are risks involved in their use, such as hallucination, and it's still unclear how LLMs can be used in a safety-first setting with strong governance. However, there are some immediate opportunities to apply LLMs to investment management as a tool, and you can see some of these in this table. If we consider a fundamental analyst role, a quant analyst role, and a legal and compliance role, there are a number of ways we can use LLMs to support the work of these functions. In the case of a fundamental analyst, the labor saving can be material. For example, we can summarize large amounts of text-based data, such as annual reports, sell-side research, and so on. We can also use LLMs for summarization to quickly build literature reviews, write-ups, and provide explanations of anything from risks of a given business model to the industrial processes a company might be involved in. For quant analysts, the uses are, in some senses, more extensive. The big advantage for quants is that LLMs can write really very good code, computer code, if they have the right instructions, and this can create very big time savings. They can even debug code and improve the efficiency of existing code. This all requires some involved prompting, but if you provide that prompting, it can save a lot of time. Legal and compliance functions can also benefit in a number of areas, potentially including interpreting and writing draft legal texts and drafting documentation. Again, great care has to be taken with the right prompts. But if the right prompts are delivered, then there can be material time savings. While we have all used ChatGPT, I'm sure, our future use of LLMs will be dominated by the integration of LLMs into applications, into software, hardware, and also websites. But the most powerful future use of LLMs in investment management will be through purpose-designed software, which will prompt LLMs in just the right way. They will also be fine-tuned to perform well, whilst also implementing the appropriate controls and guardrails for the business application for which they've been designed. In the next few slides, I'll use some prompting examples I have put into ChatGPT, but in the future, this prompting will increasingly be done by prompting engines that will take a simple question or task from a user and enhance this to prompt LLMs with all of the information it needs to form a thorough and accurate response. These prompting engines are being integrated with software like Microsoft Office and interactive development environments like PyCharm and Visual Studio. Plugins are also increasingly available for many applications. While chatbots and LLM integration will provide a big productivity boost for many roles in commerce, as it has today, in investment management, purpose-designed applications will be the most interesting development. We'll later come on to AutoGPT and Baby AGI, but systems that are capable of completing complex tasks involving data, text, code, analysis, decision-making tasks as well will soon become available. These aspects were considered to be a human-only domain until very recently, but the development of LLM threatens to force every role in investment management and investment managers themselves to take note, and essentially moves us into an arms race that many investment managers had hoped to avoid. There are fantastic opportunities to this technology, though. Prompting is at the root of how end users can employ LLMs, and I'm sure we've all had experience of prompting using tools like ChatGPT. The more accurate and descriptive the prompt is, the better the response from the LLM will be. Yes, there's fine-tuning of LLMs, transfer learning, and other ways we can train the models, but prompting is where you get the biggest immediate return. There are a number of principles, whether you are prompting an LLM in a chatbot like ChatGPT, or if you are writing a prompting tool for a bespoke application. Firstly, avoid subjectivity. Rather than asking, what is the best? Ask a less subjective question. What is the lower risk? Secondly, use special characters. If you want to enclose a passage of text, use triple quotes. Thirdly, rather than asking, for example, what are the risks with, and getting a splurge of text back, we can ask, list the risks. The LLM should provide a bulletized list, which is much easier to quickly interpret. Fourth, use simple English or simple language. LLMs are generally trained on a vast amount of data, and language that is more frequent in this training data will be better recognized by the system. Keep the prompt simple. Fifth, there are many problems with current LLMs, and we can provide instructions to try to avoid some of these issues. For instance, to reduce the probability of hallucination, we can reduce the temperature. We can also state, if you do not know, say, I do not know. You can add that as an additional prompt. 6, one of the easiest wins for reducing hallucination is to provide all of the source text that you need to interrogate. This is called ground truthing. Providing a large amount of text may need you to summarize the text to get within the token limit of the LLM. But it also means that you can force the LLM to only answer questions based on the text that you provide. At that point, you are using the powerful semantic inference of the LLM. You're not relying on the LLM having a knowledge of the information that you need to understand. On this slide, in the OpenAI style, I've added some analyst-specific improvements to prompts. We might want to investigate the social ratings of a mining company. We can ask this simply and receive a splurge of text. Or we can state, list 10 social scandals to get a succinct list returned. We can ask the LLM to summarize a piece of text. But we also tell it what themes we're interested in. And if we do that, we'll get a more relevant summary. We can ask an LLM to write some code for us using simple and vague instructions, but that's unlikely to get good results. Far better to create a bulletized list of actions that we want the code to complete. Finally, we can ask a general question of an LLM, such as, has company C been associated with labor scandals, which requires us to trust that the LLM has a large amount of contextual information about that company, the events, the sector, and the country that the company operates in. If we use a chain of thought, a series of questions, we can supply this information to the LLM to reduce the chances of it guessing. For instance, describe the risks of the apparel and sportswear industry in India. Describe the risks of company C in this industry. Has company C been associated with labor scandals? And in this way, you lead the LLM in a direction that will give you a much more a high probability of a more accurate answer. We also examined several use cases for fundamental analysts and quant analysts in our three-part series that Alan mentioned earlier on the CFA's Enterprising Investor. We used ChatGPT, we used simple prompts, and we scored the results out of 5 for the usefulness of the result in each case. What we noted was that ChatGPT did better replicating tasks for a fundamental analyst than it did for a quantitative analyst, which is perhaps surprising. Even though its performance on some of the quant analyst tasks were weak, though, the labor saving is actually greater for quant analysts because a larger proportion of their workload could be assisted by LLMs at this stage. First, as a fundamental analyst co-pilot, we asked ChatGPT to produce a company overview for a mid-cap Indian IT company. It did a good job. It did a reasonable job at doing ESG analysis, a clear use case for LLMs. It was most impressive where source text was provided and was then interrogated. In other words, we provided the ground truth and we interrogated the text that we provided the LLM with. And we found that the responses were most accurate if we did that. And I'm sure you will too. Secondly, we tested ChatGPT as a quant analyst co-pilot. We ambitiously asked it to write code for a full investment pipeline, from grabbing the data from the internet through to constructing a portfolio of stocks. This prompt was far too ambitious and the results were very poor. We then asked ChatGPT to write a stock level alpha forecasting function, and it did a much better job, recommending an interesting machine learning model and providing good advice about how to use it. We also provided step-by-step instructions for ChatGPT to write a moderately complex function, and because our instructions were clear and logical, the resulting Python function that ChatGPT wrote for us was good. All in all, it was an interesting exercise, but one thing is for sure, LLMs in their rawest form ChatGPT included, are not business ready. So what do we need to do to make LLMs business ready? The answer is to bring them inside a robust governance framework I mentioned earlier. The next 3 slides are drawn from the CFA Institute's recently launched Data Science for Investment Professional certificate that Alan spoke to earlier, where we discuss how to safely develop and employ models to achieve stakeholder objectives. First, what is governance in the context of artificial intelligence? Well, governance ensures that models in an organization achieve their requirements in a safe and verifiable way. The governance framework provides checks and balances that attempt to systematically mitigate the potential biases in the model development and deployment cycle. So governance is a critical part of any AI implementation. This slide is very complex. It shows you an AI model development and deployment cycle, a generic governance framework that should be followed for all AI model development and deployment, we believe. I don't want to get into the details, but the takeaway here is it's about solid business analysis, data quality and hygiene, checking model stability and accuracy, transparency, and also ensuring accountability at all stages. Who is responsible? So what would a model development and deployment cycle look like for LLMs? It would look the same, but note the highlighted items. These all pose challenges for LLMs. Let me give you some examples without getting into the detail here. For example, data cleansing. We can fine-tune an LLM, but we do not have any control over the data that was used to train, say, GPT-4, for example. How can we measure the performance of an LLM statistically? Has it given us a better answer or a worse answer than one of our analysts, for example? How can we ensure accountability of an individual for the outputs of an LLM? Is the developer responsible? Is the LLM creator responsible? Or is the user responsible? How do we monitor data drift? And to explain what data drift is, it's the idea that the data we are now observing becomes materially different to the data that we trained our model on originally. One example here is a tool called LangChain, a very powerful tool that you can use with LLMs. It's mainly been developed since GPT-4's training was completed. And that means that GPT-4 is not aware of very much to do with LangChain's development. It's not aware of the lexicon that LangChain uses, or the package or its associated research. These are the elements that need to be rethought for LLMs. The way we can deal with these problems is to verify and validate LLM outcomes thoroughly, use other models and processes to verify the data, use ground truthing, use strong prompting, and have strict accountability as well. While there are some very good use cases for LLMs in the short to medium term, the longer term potential of LLMs is huge. The most exciting of these possibilities is baby AGI, where the LLM becomes a controller. A controller LLM can complete tasks, complex tasks from a simple user-defined mission. AutoGPT is an experimental approach to do this. Launched on the 30th of March 2023, a system can be presented with a task such as write a Japanese recipe book, or how do I become a tech entrepreneur? The system will then recurse until it finds an answer to your mission. More than this, it can go through a process of self-improvement in a sense. So how would a baby AGI look in a finance setting? We can see our take, Rothko's take on this slide here. It will be possible to give a user-defined mission to the controller LLM, which defines the task it needs to carry out and complete the mission, posing its own questions and answering its own questions until it arrives at a satisfactory completion of the mission. The controller LLM can also be given outside resources to allow it to achieve the mission. We can give the controller data resources, functional resources, and cognitive resources. Data resources could include internet search capability. That's already in ChatGPT, but we can also give the controller access to our own databases. Functional resources would include specialist functions, perhaps simulation engines, or copies of your live stock selection models to experiment with. Cognitive resources, such as long and short-term memory, providing context for the LLM, perhaps even causal elements to allow for more powerful drivers of task creation, questions and answers than LLMs are currently capable of delivering. The possibilities for a system of this nature are huge and at the same time terrifying. But if developed and employed in the right way, I believe these approaches will be the most exciting part of the LLM revolution. Alan's already mentioned these pieces on the CFA's Enterprising Investor, but if you would like to learn more about these themes that I've mentioned, please do check out the Enterprising Investor website for the three-part series that I wrote with Dr. Tillman Wade, who is an award-winning AI researcher and a close collaborator of mine. Thanks very much for listening to my presentation, and thanks very much for the invitation to this webinar today. It's been a great honor. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Silakan kalau ada yang mau tanya, kalau kesulitan bahasa bisa bicara dalam bahasa Indonesia, nanti saya translate. Silakan unmute aja, langsung bicara.
Maybe we could start with the elaboration of certification program, Pak Rahmat, presenting the certification program. That science.
Yeah, I think it's better if Dr. Alan answered that question.
Okay, are you referring to how do we get the certification of that data science program that we are launching?
Bu Rama, is that your question?
Yes, yes. Maybe some participant here will like to take a look and consider to enroll the program.
Okay. First of all, you can go onto our website and or just use Google to look for data science courses, CFA. This few keywords and you will be able to find more information about the courses. But basically, for these data science certificates, anyone who have basic knowledge of mathematics, and I'm talking about things like mean, median, mode, and you are keen to understand how data science actually interact with nowadays asset management to actually generate more alpha or more stability, and as well as risk management, you can actually go for these courses. And this course actually have okay, should I say this program actually have 5 courses. Course 1 to course 5, and course 1 actually, as I mentioned earlier on, looks at all the basic statistics, and this will ensure that any one of you who are not strong in mathematics is actually well covered before we go on to the more difficult courses. Let's say in course 2, where we actually start to look at machine learning specific statistics, and here we actually go a bit more deeper to look at and appreciate how we can actually teach. I use the word teach with apostrophe. It's actually more of prompting the large language model to actually understand what we actually want, and also to look at various use case scenario where professionals have been using their model for their work. And after that, we go on to the natural language processing, where we actually look at how do we input and how do we extract human language from the LLM model to actually get what we want, and also what are the downside of it. Because understanding the power and how to use all these large language model is only one part of the story. We must also have an appreciation of its limitations, and that's why in the last course 5, where we look at mitigating biases, we are actually very concerned about what to do and what not to do for when using big data. Because you must understand that for any black box is a garbage in, garbage out kind of scenario. So we look at the various way whereby we can mitigate such biases, such a problematic output, and we know how to use all these model in a very ethical way. Because the last thing we want is to build a model that give you certain signals that ended up becoming insider trading. That's the worst that it can be. So we also need to look at ethical situation, and this is where the course is actually highly valuable and is actually not easily can be obtained, in the sense that you couldn't just go and watch some YouTube video and understand how all these things work. And therefore we have packaged all the material in this 5-course program for investment professional to actually look at, and also for the supporting people who are working with investment professionals to understand how big data can be incorporated into their daily work. Feel free to explore our website, and you have further questions regarding how to log on and how to gain access to the course registration process. Please feel free to send your email to CFA Society Indonesia. They can feedback to me, and I'll be happy to take this further with you offline.
Yeah, Professor Dan and Dr. Alan, they have a question whether you can share your slides with your audience after the webinar.
Yeah, no problem from me.
Okay.
Yeah, not an issue for me.
All right.
Maybe I would like to ask questions while we take. Oh, this question in the chat box, so it's a priority.
Yeah. There's a question in the chat box. You say, hi, Dr. Dan, I'm quite new in this GDP topic. Could you please explain the risk involved if I ask ChatGPT questions such as, please provide the top 5 stocks in Indonesia for dividend reinvesting plan, which I think can be a good way to invest in compounding return over time. However, how can we ask ChatGPT in a language where we don't pose any risk getting a list of value trap companies, value declining companies offering large dividend? Could please provide a more appropriate language or statement to ask GDP the above? So
Yeah,
basically,
that's
Go ahead,
thanks
Mike.
very much. Yeah, so basically, can you ask ChatGPT to recommend stocks to you? What are the problems with that, and what is a better approach? You can ask it to recommend stocks to you. It is restricted in some senses. OpenAI have restricted ChatGPT, I believe, to offer certain types of advice or recommendation. You can jailbreak it if you want. What I would suggest is not to do that. ChatGPT is trained on a huge amount of text data, as you'll be aware, and in some senses it regurgitates that in a sort of stochastic way. Some people call these systems stochastic parrots. That really isn't a good basis to be selecting stocks. There is no shortcut in terms of stock selection and stock analysis, in my view. You need to do thorough fundamental analysis. If you do it with AI tools, fine, or if you do it fundamentally, fine as well. But asking a an LLM to recommend stocks is a very bad idea in my opinion, because it will just regurgitate what it's been trained on, and that almost certainly won't have a good basis for stock selection. What to do instead? As I mentioned, you can use large language models, ChatGPT as well, to help you understand a company more, its business model, its risks, its operational processes, its industrial processes, and so on. And once you have that information, you can then research more and draw deeper conclusions about the nature of that company and whether it makes a good investment or not. So in that sense, there are no shortcuts, but ChatGPT can help you as a co-pilot to reach stronger conclusions about investments, in my opinion.
Okay, there's another question. Dr. Dan, I would like to understand further your view on the future of this field compared to other trends such as Web 3.0, blockchain technology, and others. Is it just a hype, or is it going to be a great fundamental thing to pursue compared to other technology to invest? I saw that this technology becoming the new trend for VC to invest.
Yep, it's a good question. There is a hype cycle at work with all of these new technologies. My colleagues at the University of Warwick at the Gilmore Centre have worked extensively on all of these areas: blockchain, Web 3.0, and artificial intelligence as well. If you want to learn more on this, I would encourage you to look at view the webinars that we have run for the Gilmore Centre on those topics. Is there a hype cycle? Yes, there definitely is. Where are we in that hype cycle? It's difficult to say when you're involved in the thick of that hype cycle. And are large language models at the peak of the hype cycle? The answer is, in some senses, yes, definitely. There's a lot of hype around large language models, but equally, there's huge potential as well. I mentioned baby AGI. This has huge potential. We at Rothco are working on our own versions of this at the moment. I would be very surprised if other technologically advanced finance groups and tech companies are not doing the same thing. And I think that there will be huge benefits to employing baby AGI as an expression, controller LLMs as we move forwards. And I don't think that has been overhyped, no. So in terms of blockchain, my personal view is, yes, there's been a lot of hype around blockchain. There's a lot of potential. Web 3.0, the same. Large language models, yes, there's been a lot of hype, but I believe there to be more potential. It's a completely different thing, but I believe there to be more potential. That's my personal view.
We have another question from Rina. Dr. Allen, the question related to the costs. As far as I know, there are machine learning models and there are deep learning models. Correct me if I'm wrong. Newbie in this, which model will be provided in the cost? Second, if we apply LLM using stock data from Indonesia stock, will the analysis result from LLM be reliable? I mean, what is your suggestion for the target of analysis? Is it prediction or efficiency or error reduction for Indonesia stock LLM analysis? Dr. Allen,
okay, let me try to answer this. Let me try to answer this question and also to provide some additional comments. But I think the second part of the question should be better directed to Dan, because he's actually in the technical area of this. But let me give my 2 cents first. Okay, first of all, in this certificate, you will be given very basic understanding and foundation on how the LLM works. But of course, you will not be expecting to be able to learn how to create an LLM out of just taking a certificate. That is way impossible. But then it will give you a head start to understand what are the key things you need to learn, what are the key principles you need to understand. Let's say, for example, I used to be a futures day trader, and during my days when I need to pinpoint my position, I usually have candlestick pattern that I wanted to monitor on a regular basis. And in the past, I need to use what we call programming language that's specific to the trading platform that I'm doing. It may be TradeStation, it may be NinjaTrader, that I have to do some programming to get the setup to be automated. But now with a large language model and with all the deep learning technology available, I can actually get this process automated if I want. So this is the good side of being in such a modern age where we can use artificial tools to help us shortcut a lot of ways to make our trading, our position trading actually more, how should I say, more easy. And I think going forward, it will actually make the life of many asset manager much more, how should I say, to focus more of their attention on honing their alpha picking skill, but yet do not have to do a lot of background work, because all this can actually be shifted to the artificial intelligence. As for the other part of the second part of the question, maybe Dan, you would like to answer that?
Sure, thanks, Alan. So can LLMs be used to analyze and select Indonesian stocks? They can be used to help that process, as Alan was alluding to. So LLMs can be used to summarize vast amounts of data, which can be a labor-saving device. It can save you time. LLMs can also be used to write code to create systematic functions to forecast alpha, for example. They may not be, hugely complex. They may have their drawbacks, but they can save you time. So if you have an idea about, say, for example, the quantitative model that you want to use to select Indonesian stocks, for example, then LLMs can help you write the code to build that function. They can also help you write the code to pull in certain types of data, which are fairly limited, but certain types of data from the internet as well to drive those models. So again, you should think of LLMs as a co-pilot, not an autopilot at this stage. And they can provide great time saving. When you're writing code, they can make your coding much faster. And they can also be used to debug code and to refine code as well. So LLMs are a co-pilot, which means that you as the analyst have to have the ideas about how you're going to drive your stock selection or your investment process. To rely on an LLM to do that would, in my view, be dangerous and would be most likely to be value destroying. So LLMs as a co-pilot, not an autopilot.
And I would actually take this as good news, because many of us who are analysts and portfolio manager, we will most likely not lose our job, and we, in fact, will be using AI as a co-pilot companion. And on this note, I also wanted to share some of my view about whether a certain technology improvement is actually a hype. I mean, if we trace back a few hundred years ago, when train was first invented, there was a lot of buzz on a listed railway company, and look what happened thereafter. There was an oversupply of railway in America, and soon after, many railway companies actually went bankrupt. But fast forward another half a century, rail industry actually boomed. And if we were to look at more recently about when internet first came up, everything was a hype, and we have many .com company. And remember what happened thereafter? .com bust. But from the debris of all the .com bust, we have companies like Google, Microsoft, etc. And thereafter, it boomed again. So in every technological major innovation, we always have hype at the beginning. It is just down to us investors as well as employees to select the company that are going to survive, and they are not just coming out with a company that is just telling story without any value add on a concrete basis. So this cycle will go on and on. So to answer this question short, yes, in any technological revolution, there will always be an element of hype. But after the hype, whoever survives and can really generate real value add will survive.
Okay, we have two more questions from Ryan. In the realm of investment decision guided by AI, what best practice can be implemented to address biases considering the limitation I have encountered where AI may not provide proper solution for investment decision? Dr. Dan?
Well, I can strongly recommend doing the data science certificate, the CFA's data science certificate, because that journey will answer all of those questions in great detail. And to add to what Alan was saying earlier, the capstone of the entire certificate is a use case where it's modeled on Rothko's approach to driving our artificial intelligence investments, stock selection, and it will address this question directly. And to give you a sneak preview of this, what we do in the final use case is to compare a traditional quant, three different approaches, a traditional quant approach using factor-based investing to select US small cap stocks. We then use a neural net based approach to drive stock selection with traditional factors as its input data. And then finally, we use an approach called SAI, symbolic artificial intelligence, which is modeled as a very, very simplified version of our approach that we think about at Rothko. It's not the same, but it's sort of the way we think about it, which shows superior performance for SAI, which is an interpretable approach. We use some basic causal inference, and we take the student through each of these steps and explain why factor-based investing has now been superseded with you by machine learning and AI. Why the second case of using a naive approach, just throwing a neural network at the problem, can be dangerous and destroy value. And thirdly, why using interpretability and causality involved in the design of your AI is crucial. So I would advise you to take the data science certificate, which will take you all the way through the stages that Alan mentioned, but will finish with that what we think is a powerful use case of explaining best practice in employing AI to drive stock selection and an investment process.
All right, the last question for Dr. Alan. Hi, CFA team. I noticed the data science for investment professional certificate course is held online, specifically in Indonesia. Will the test be held online at home as well, or we come to the test center?
Yes, the final assessment will be held online as well, and you will be at the comfort of your home. For each of the course, there is what we call practice questions for the individual module within the course. Each course typically have 4 to 5 modules, and after the end of course, there will be end of course question, and those are actually testable, and you will act towards your final score. And after you complete all the 5 courses, there will be an end of program question and assessment, and that will determine whether you will get the certificate. I hope that is clear enough. All these are carried out purely online. There's no need for you to go to the test center.
All right, as we want to do a new tradition, hold on one more. Okay, can all of you please switch on your camera so we can take a group photo? Inform us when you are ready, Bu Dewi.
Yeah, Pak.
Can you all please switch on your camera? Also, before I forget, thank you also to Pak Herman Chayadi, representative from PWMII, for helping us to organize this webinar.
Okay, we start. 1, 2, 3, slide 2. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Bu Dewi, if you can show the slides, the webinar opening slide for our next event.
Okay.
We have ethical decision-making workshop coming up. The last slide, Bu, if you can show. Yeah, this, if member of PWMII more you want to join, please direct message to Bu Dewi or myself. Yeah. Probably we might open this up to the public, to yourself, maybe in the next two weeks. Yeah, it's complimentary, free of charge. Thank you, Bu Dewi. Once again, thank you, Dr. Dan. Thank you, Dr. Allen. If they want to reach you, is there any, can you give your contact, maybe? Show again your contact.
Sure,
Or Alan,
no worries.
CFA Society Indonesia can do it for Dr. Dan.
You can just drop them our email. I'm sure both Dan and myself will be more than happy to actually follow up. Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
thank you so much again. Thank you.
Thank you.
okay,
Thank you.
in that case, if you have any question for both of our speaker, can email to CFA Society Indonesia and we will forward it to them. Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank you.
day.
Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Alan.
Bye-bye.
It's late in Hong
Bye.
Kong.